After defining culture, we need to define many other terms and concepts as we begin to study intercultural competence. Defining these terms early helps us make sure that we understand how people talk about culture and assures we are on the same page conceptually. So we'll focus here on the different terms that help us understand culture better. For a definition of culture, take a look at my other video that deals with just that topic. I capitalize other and use C1, C2, and C3 to refer to one's first culture, second culture, and those things that can be considered third culture. Let's deal with each of these one by one. I capitalize other, which is any other human being who is recognized as equal to I and therefore capitalized, just as in English, I capitalize the proper noun I to give it proper significance and equality to me. This capitalization represents an affordance of human dignity equal to my own. Also, it represents my eventual realization of otherness when I am abroad and that I am an other, sometimes even to myself. Orson Scott Card takes this even further with his terminology to describe otherness in Speaker for the Dead. This concept of capitalization is borrowed from Tsvetan Todorov's book, The Conquest of America, which is a demonstration of how the lack of the term culture leads to genocide. Borrowing from second language acquisition, which uses L1 and L2 to abbreviate the reference to first language L1 or native language and second language L2 respectively, I use C1, C2, and C3. First culture or C1 is your own native culture. You acquire your native culture along with your first language or languages, your L1. You can have more than one first culture, just as you can have multiple native languages. If you think about how you acquired your first culture and you had to describe it to another, where would you start? How long would it take for you to describe it to a stranger or another? And there's C2 or second culture, which is learned or acquired, just like a second language, L2. You can learn it by studying it in school, or you can acquire another culture and its language by living among the people to whom it belongs. This is less conditioning, as your C1 process of acquisition would be, but more of an anthropological approach to studying the other and what the other is doing. This includes all cultures that you acquire or learn after you have successfully acquired your first culture sequentially. I have used these terms this way based on my knowledge of linguistics, so it is a bit unique to my description. The implications are many from there, but the terms themselves are useful, especially since every person should identify their first culture and its tendencies in preparation for study abroad. The impact of the other's culture on each psyche can be very great, and if one is not prepared, it can cause existential and psychological crises. This is where the study of intercultural competence in the field comes in and is essential in my mind. Then there's third culture, which isn't what you'd expect. You'd expect this to be the other culture acquired or learned after the second culture, but that's not it. A sequentially acquired third other's culture is actually just another second culture. So you can have multiple first cultures and multiple second cultures. Third culture is actually that which is created when two or more cultures come together and mix. Third culture kids, for example, are children who have grown up in their non-passport country or in a land that is not the country of their parents. 1.5 generation kids are third culture kids, or TCKs. Third culture actually describes a person or thing that is neither fully one culture nor fully the other culture, but something that is a new creation in the intersection of cultures. Third culture spaces are created when three cultures come together around a foreign language to most of them, and communication takes shape. The space is very unique. Second language acquisition centers in the US or Canada are like this, among other places around the world. So third culture is a special new quality created in the negotiation that occurs in intercultural spaces where individuals come together. Also, things that are third culture would be something like a hamburger in Korea. The ingredients come together to create technically a hamburger, but nothing that tastes like home. That's third culture. Competence is the demonstrated and measurable ability to do something well. So intercultural competence is that set of skills that make a person effective and appropriate, achieving good outcomes in cross-cultural or intercultural spaces. And all of this begs the question that culture is real and has real effects. You acquire it like a first language, but you only demonstrate your competence in a second culture, that is, that you are interculturally competent, when you act appropriately and get the effects you're seeking, and no one is offended. Because culture is meaning ascribed to actions, a technology for waging peace, where shared meanings and interpretations are not made explicit and obvious. A simple description of the differences between the two we get from Edward T. Hall, who classifies one tendency of culture as low context and the other as high context. We'll present and discuss those in greater depth in other videos, though. Culture has real effects. While I use these videos as presentations for the courses I teach on intercultural competence, they're also freely available for anyone to watch. So please feel free to like or subscribe to this channel as you see fit, or to share it. Your feedback is valuable to me to make sure that things are clear. And may you find the peace you are looking for.